Hello there and welcome to this week's official EFL podcast. Our special guest this week swapped South Yorkshire for South Wales in the summer. We get the latest at Swansea City from Michael Duff.
Tuesday night we get done in a typical championship game. Could have been 0-0, had a good goal disallowed to get done with a worldie. We've been much improved since then, but again that's from building relationships, understanding what the players want, players understanding what we want from them. And it's a work in progress, there's no doubt.
Sky Sports' Gary Weaver has been on the road. He gives us his EFL take, and Cardiff's Romaine Sawyers gives us his EFL idol. This is the official EFL podcast. Hello there, a very warm welcome to another episode of the official EFL podcast. I'm looking out the window, it's raining, it's miserable, it's grey, it feels very autumnal, and what we need is a burst of sunshine, a ray of light, and we've got that in the form of Gary Weaver. Hello, Gary.
Hello, Prutz. How are you?
I'm good.
Being compared to the sun now, am I, by you?
You are.
Oh,
you are.
That's nice. It's sunny where I am, by the way.
Boiling hot. It's sunny where you are, is it?
Yeah, I can't tell you where I am, but it's sunny.
No, for all kinds of legal reasons, we can never reveal the location of Gary Weaver. Safe to say, he's always in between matches, which I think is the best way to describe what you do. And speaking of being in between matches, your last one was Leicester City against Sunderland. First championship side to win 12 out of their first 13 games ever.
Yeah.
Top of the league, 14 clear of third place. Things are going swimmingly indeed. Away from a very straightforward opinion that Leicester City are very good, Enzo Maresca is a good coach. They have a lot of very good players. What did you see firsthand at the King Power?
I'll tell you what I saw. I saw Sunderland give them a really good game the other night. It was interesting as well, Prutz, the tactical tweaks that were going on because, as you know, when we get the teams, we have to come up with the formations. I mean, Andy Hinchliffe were talking to each other thinking, do you think Ricardo Pereira will play it right back and step into his midfield role? If he does, will he leave lots of space for Jack Clarke? And then, of course, the game starts and it's James Justin who's playing right back. No stranger to playing there. So Enzo Maresca wanted him to play as a right back to make sure Clarke didn't get that space. And Ricardo Pereira stepped in from left back into midfield on that side of the pitch. But yeah, mate, do you know what? The whole feel around the place, as you'd expect with winning games, has changed. They're putting smiles on the faces of people in Leicester, and no one wants to be relegated, but you're seeing your team win football matches, aren't you? And doing it in a way, because in a way that's impressive. But let's not forget, Enzo Maresca, he had to fight to win over some of the fans, didn't he? Because of the style of play. Some of them wanted the ball being played forward a bit quicker, but he's gone, look, the reason we go backwards is to attack. You need to buy into what we're doing, the players have. And everyone just seems to be enjoying it. But Sunderland were really, really good. Leicester could have had 4, Sunderland could have had 3. It was that kind of game. I mean,
they're a fantastic football team, aren't they, under Tony Mowbray? And given what we've seen from them, obviously, last season coming into this season, reacting to performances and defeats, another side that, as you quite rightly say, is fearless, is young, is hungry, and there's a real togetherness there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And it was, again, you go to that game the other night and you're asking the question, will Sunderland come and open up against Leicester? Because if you open up against Leicester, they'll pick you off. If you bide your time against Leicester, they'll still find a way to pick it off. So, Tony Mowbray's team went for it. And as I say, Anthony Patterson made 3 really good saves. So Leicester could have had more, but Sunderland could have had a couple as well. But yeah, I think Sunderland maybe showed the rest of the league. I know Hull beat Leicester by man-to-man marking at Leicester, but Sunderland maybe show the rest of the league that, you can maybe take the game to Leicester, albeit you may still lose.
Speaking of Hull City, an impressive win for them over Birmingham City at St Andrews. It was, of course, Wayne Rooney's first game at home in charge of the Blues. It's 2 defeats in 2 now. He was up against former teammate Michael Carrick and Borough in his first game. Played more games with Michael Carrick than anyone else in his career, which was a fun little fact that I heard during the course of the week. Unhappy, to a certain degree, Birmingham fans on the final whistle. Questions coming out of the post-match debrief with regards to Wayne Rooney talking to his players. I mean, that's what managers do. They sit down, they discuss, they rant, they rave, they debate. But question marks about not knowing necessarily what each other wants in the middle. Question marks potentially from the Birmingham boss about commitment towards the latter stages of the game. And not being a doom-monger by any stretch of the imagination. It's an inauspicious start, isn't it, for Wayne at St Andrews?
It is, and I think Wayne was always going to be on the back foot because of what happened and the way he came in. You know, John Eustace was doing all right, wasn't he? Although I'm sure John knew that this was coming before it happened. Hence his celebration with that goal
we saw that,
against West Bromwich Albion. With Wayne, I think Wayne's come in and he's come in and said, "This is my style of play. This is my style of play. Do you want to play this way? Do you feel comfortable playing this way?" Now, a couple of players have held their hands up and said we're not really comfortable with it at this moment in time. But that's very honest of Wayne to come out and say that. And Wayne is honest in terms of his assessment after games and what he wants to do with the players. And, you talk to, as you mentioned, he was beaten by Liam Rossinia last night, and they, of course, were together at Derby. And Liam says that Wayne's biggest attribute is his man management. So him asking the players whether they're comfortable or not is something that obviously Wayne has to do. And then if some of them aren't, he's got to find a way to make them comfortable or to come up with a style of play that, Birmingham wants from the players' perspective to win games. But I think Prutz, look, you know better than me because you played, but I think the way Wayne's come in when Birmingham are doing so well and what's happened in the past with Gary Rowett and Gianfranco Zola when Birmingham made that mistake, it's always going to be on people's minds, I think, and always going to be a back foot movement for Wayne in terms of he's going to be up against it if they were going to lose games early on, and that's what's happening. But he's only just gone in.
Yeah. Time will tell, of course, and time has been on the side of Michael Carrick and Borough. Not for saying for 1 second that he was under any real pressure, but we saw a sluggish start to the season, didn't we, off the back of a very decent playoff campaign. A statement victory away at Norwich during the course of the week. Key figures, we've discussed many a time the players that have moved on from the Riverside, but in the middle now of working with players that are unavailable and an injury list, which any manager's got to contend with, like Sir Riley McGrade, Darrell Lenihan, Hayden Hackney suspended for the weekend. Tommy Smith we obviously wish him all the very, very best with regards to quite a hefty injury for him. They're currently in 9th spot now, level on points with West Brom in 6th. It's been quite the turnaround, and given that time frame, the anniversary of Michael Carrick being in charge, it's almost like they needed a Michael Carrick effect from Michael Carrick that had already been there, doing the same thing that he did at the same time last season. And it seems to be working.
Yeah, they're relaunching October again. I think I did them in against Sunderland, the 4-0 win. I spoke to Kieran Scott, who's the head of football. We spoke about the loan players and the fact that obviously they had to go back. And he did say, look, they made a conscious decision this summer not to get as many loan players in because of that effect, because of the rebuild they had to do. But also, he said the quality wasn't out there. The quality of loan play wasn't out there. There had been there the previous season. A lot of Premier League clubs are selling their players rather than allowing them to go out on loan. But yeah, I mean, performance-wise, they were playing well at the start of the season. They weren't getting the results. Then the confidence did dip and performances dipped too. But then comes that turnaround. I think the 4-0 win against Sunderland was huge. I know Sunderland had Dan Neil sent off. But Michael Carrick, we know he's a calm presence. He believes in the way that he wants to play, and he believes that will benefit Middlesbrough and they'll get to the Premier League playing that way. So he was never going to go off script, was he? He was just hoping that at some point the results would come and the players would gel again just like they did last season.
Speaking of gelling, let's move seamlessly into our hair. Of course, I mean, the jury's obviously still out given what we've seen so far in the Championship. Sheffield Wednesday still bottom, still winless. Danny Röhl taking over there. QPR dropping to second bottom. Rotherham, a very, very strong win for them. They are still in the relegation places at the top end of League One. Pompey remain unbeaten in the league. Oxford we saw lose in the week, but they remain second. Barnsley, third place in League One. Later on in the podcast, we're going to talk to the former Barnsley manager Michael Duff, who of course took them all the way to the playoff final and has since moved on to pastures new at Swansea. They've got League One top scorer Devante Cole in the rudest of health. Himself, he's already been on the podcast this season. A very engaging footballer. A lot to like about this Barnsley side, and we talked about, and we have spoken about it on the podcast before, Gary, about transition, about change, about new managers coming in, but it seems to have taken up where the former manager Michael Duff left off, Neil Collins.
Yeah, and he's probably an appointment you weren't expecting. But yeah, he's come in. He says there's still plenty more to come from his team. Barnsley, as you mentioned, Prutz, they had to pick themselves up from that heartbreak at Wembley. The way they lost the playoff final, they felt there was an injustice as well with a couple of the decisions in that playoff final. Obviously, then Michael Duff goes. So your world's kind of caved in, your football world, isn't it? So you've got to go and replace him. Devante Cole, 10-14 now. I think the worry will be January for Devante Cole and whether Barnsley manage to hold on to them onto him, because we know the Barnsley model is bring players in, youngsters, improve them, sell them. If it's a model for a lot of clubs, sell them if the right offer comes in. Callum Styles is scoring goals as well, because he was out on loan at Millwall last season, and he's a great player, Callum Styles. He's suspended for this weekend now, I think, but he has been scoring goals, and Neil Collins has worked wonders. It's always difficult for new managers going into a situation, especially I think when you've got to lift a squad. Clearly, it wasn't relegation, but it was losing the way they did in that playoff final. But he has lifted them.
Speaking of being lifted, Michael Appleton has lifted Charlton. It was a first defeat in 8 for them, though, against Lincoln City. Managers Lincoln City, of course, with Mark Kennedy moving on. Hakeem Adelakun to the fore, perhaps making a point to his former boss, who didn't really kind of play him too much whilst he was at Lincoln City. Given what we've seen from Charlton and Michael, I mean, it was always going to happen, wasn't it, playing a former side in such a rich vein of form that you were going to slip up? Yeah,
no, I'll point to proof. But we know Michael, he's a very good coach, isn't he? He's got a great reputation. That's because he's worked wonders at clubs. And Charlton, mate, I mean, you've obviously played, you have played at the Valley, haven't you? I'm sure you played at the Valley.
I was there, whether you call it playing football, I don't know. But
you stood on the pitch, didn't you, for a while, dictating things. But yeah, I mean, I've commentated there, obviously, many times. It's a great stadium, great atmosphere. And for Charlton, to be fair, it's proven to be a power base for them at the moment. So Michael Appleton's looking to continue to build on that, scoring goals there, getting results there, and they have to make the Valley count for them.
Derby County.
Yes.
We saw them get back to winning ways against Exeter at home against Pride Park after a disappointing weekend's result against Shrewsbury. And there was a little bit of consternation. We saw the ever lovely and ever charming Conor Hourihane go and discuss certain things with the fan base, which is a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because I'm trying to think, put myself in that position as a player. You understand the frustration of fans. Emotions are very high after the final whistle. So there is an element of how that discussion goes. You've got to be very, very wary of that. But the best way to answer that type of criticism is then to go and make sure that you win the next game, which is they did exactly that. They currently sit 8th in League One. And any debate, I mean, I've seen discussion about the age of the squad and the players at the disposal of Paul Warne. Has he stacked a squad with experience for this potential playoff push, or is it something that may run out of legs given the age of the squad?
Well, I think if you look at Paul Warne's squads in the past, he's always gone for experienced players. Obviously, his budget's never been the biggest at Rotherham, where he was beforehand. Maybe he feels it's the kind of league where you need more experience than not. You look at Sheffield Wednesday last season, they got out of it with an ageing squad, if you like. And you're right in terms of Conor Hourihane, who's experienced, not his experience, but his talent, should stand out in League One. I think when he went to confront the fans the other day, not confront them, to meet with them after the game, I think the thing is, Prutz, and I always say, I'm a fan, I'm a supporter, and when your team is not playing well, it's always the manager or the hierarchy that seem to get it from the media. And I think sometimes fans are thinking, well, hang on, you're the players out there on the pitch, you're playing for us. What's not happening? So I think Conor going over there, and he said, didn't he? Look, we're trying our best. I'm trying my best, and that's all he said to the fans, really. And they said a few things back, and off he went. But it could look like it was a healthy thing to do, and then, as you say, they responded with that win. But ultimately, Prutz, it's the players out on the pitch, isn't it? Yeah. They've got to do it.
Absolutely, that's where the pressure lies. And as you say, sometimes they can get away with taking that particular flight, by deflecting it, not necessarily consciously, but I think
you can hide behind the manager, you can hide behind the hierarchy, and I'm not talking about Derby players in particular, I'm just talking about footballers in general, and sometimes they can get away with what's going on the pitch.
I think especially when you look at someone like a Paul Warne, who is very open, approachable, he's always open to chat to the media. But of course, I mean, Derby sitting in 8th, they've still got a hell of a lot of games to make up the shortfall between themselves and the playoff places. Down at the bottom, we saw Cheltenham win and score a wonderful goal at the weekend.
Oh, what a goal that was!
It was an absolute worldie, wasn't it? I mean, they are few and far between, shall we say, for Cheltenham Town so far this season, currently propping up League One. Reading just above them, Fleetwood and Wigan rounding out the relegation places. At the very top of League Two, Stockport County. All the chat, of course, has been on Notts County and Wrexham. They are currently second and third behind Notts County. Mansfield Town, 19 games unbeaten.
Crazy.
Absolutely stunning work being done by Nigel Clough, the ever chilled Nigel Clough. We chatted to him last week on the podcast,
last week,
and it was really good fun. Mentioned Notts County, Lewis Macari. I suppose if you call him Lou Macari, then you realise where the genealogy comes from. He is, of course, the grandson of the great Lou Macari. Lewis scored on his EFL debut, currently on loan from Stoke, and it is a name that conjures up memories of a player that, I was going to say our generation, Gary.
Hang on a minute.
knows of and recognises very, very well indeed.
Yeah, well, as for Lou Macari, I spent a lot of time in his company when I used to commentate on Manchester United on the radio. Great company, loves football, does great work in the community at Stoke as well. Let's not forget. But then it'll be absolutely made up to see his grandson, Lewis, score. Lewis, who's he's played centre-back, hasn't he? He's played full-back. He's popped up with that stunner. It was a cracking goal, by the way, as well, wasn't it? And he was on loan at Dundalk last season, helped them get into Europe. He's been on loan at Market Drayton. And now he's scoring goals for Notts County. But a great moment for him. And Lou, the granddad, will be absolutely delighted.
The granddad indeed. Happy as Lou, not Larry. Look, sorry, that's an awful.
Did you not get much sleep last night, Prutton?
That's not even a granddad joke. That's an awful dad joke.
Yeah, I'm going to be saying that.
So I said Notts in second, Wrexham, Mansfield, just below Mansfield, Crewe Alexandra. Now the Crewe side that I always played against was one that they were doing attempting the type of football that we now see everywhere, passing out from the back, playing inside your own 6-yard box. Gresty Road being the place where, I'm not making it all about me, Gary, but I think I scored my first ever professional goal there. But it was a tap in I couldn't miss, try as I might. They did lose, obviously, in the week to Stockport County. No disgrace in that, them being the league leaders. But sat fifth in League Two. Are we making enough of Crewe? Do we need to make more of Crewe? Do we need to tempt fate and talk about them?
I know Lee Bell's probably going, oh no, please ignore it. I think the thing with Crewe is, obviously I'm from the Northwest. Geographically, they're surrounded by giants. In the table, they're surrounded by giants, and they're up in fifth at the moment. They've always had the ability to bring players through, and as you said, it's always been in their DNA to play a certain way. And one of the pluses of being surrounded by big clubs is that a lot of big clubs release young players, don't they? And Crewe can be there picking up the pieces as they have done in the past. I think Lee Bell was, he's disappointed with the performance against Stockport. Probably felt it was the first time a lot of those players have played in a really, really big game at the top end of the table. Didn't pass the ball enough, so didn't express themselves as they probably should have done or as he would have liked. But no, I don't think a lot is being made of Crewe because there's a lot of big names in that league, aren't there? A lot of big personalities in that league. But for Crewe to be doing what they're doing is phenomenal right now. Mike
Williamson is now a boss at MK Dons, former teammate of mine from a very, very, very long time.
You know everybody.
I know. It's 6 degrees of separation with a journeyman footballer. Don't worry, I always appear somewhere knowing somebody. And his first win in 10 for MK Dons, first win as MK Dons boss, coming in from Gateshead. It's been. I remember we spoke to Crewe Alexandra earlier on in the season, and that how that's turned around, and obviously the movement of managers. We saw Neil Harris started really well with Gillingham, then suddenly he finds himself out of a job. Given the change that was needed, given that falling out of the division at the end of last season, do we have a feeling that Mike's the man to get that good feeling back, and more importantly, it's promotion, isn't it, for a team the size of MK Dons in League Two?
Yeah, I mean, Pete Winkleman wants that club in the Championship. They got to the Championship, minimum in the Championship at that stadium as well. I think with Mike Williamson, one of the reasons he was brought in is to go back to that style of play they had under Carl Robinson a long time ago, Russell Martin, under Liam as well. Mike Williamson is kind of playing a similar way, or wants to play a similar way. And you look at Pete Winkleman's appointments, a lot of them, he doesn't get on the typical merry-go-round, does he? Usually, of managerial appointments. So Mike Williamson was doing great work at Gateshead. He's trusted by Premier League clubs and big clubs to nurture their talent on loan. I know Eddie Howe is a big fan of his in the North East. and he's big mates with Russell Martin, isn't he? They were together at Wycombe. So it looks like a good MK Dons appointment, typical Pete Winkleman appointment, I'd say, in terms of maybe you weren't expecting Mike Willington to get the job, but also the style of play that he wants to implement is more towards what MK Dons down the years we've known them to do. And as you say, that stadium, Pete Winkleman, the owner, they have to be Championship. That's what he wants, minimum. So a lot of way to get there.
17th, 16th place in the division. Harrogate just below them in 17th. I'd like to always give them a shout out. Forest Green and Sutton propping up the division. Okie dokie, Gary Weaver. A very, very impressive first half from you. You deserve a cup of tea and a biscuit and maybe a small lie down. And whilst you're doing that right here on the official EFL podcast, we're going to conclude our focus on Black History Month and hear from Cardiff's Romaine Sawyers with his true footballing idol.
Hi, I'm Romaine Sawyers from Cardiff City Football Club, and this is my football icon. My first memory of Thierry Henry is growing up as an Arsenal fan. Just before the Invincible seasons, the team with Bergkamp, Youngberg, Pires, Henry was a standout performer. He was captain at the time, and he was just a key talisman, both with and without the ball, demanding off players, and his level of ability was high. What makes him so special was his confidence, which was borderline arrogance, but he always showed up in the big moments. He had an impact on my career because he was very self-assured. He gave hope that you can be that way inclined and still go and perform. I think he added pressure to himself because of it, but like I said, he always rose to the challenge. I've been quite fortunate enough to get my hands on a signed Thierry Henry jersey that I got framed from a Football London award, so that's a special memory of mine. My greatest memory of Arsenal and Thierry Henry in particular playing is, I think, the tiki-taka style, what's more known to man now. I think Arsenal was one of the only team or the first teams to do it back then, and that was a style of football that I really appreciated. If I saw Thierry Henry today, I'd just ask him simply, how did he do it? How did he make it look so easy?
The EFL have launched the Together Against Racism campaign, and earlier this month I met up with friend and colleague Mr. Joby McAnuff to have a frank and open discussion about his experiences of racism in the game.
I think football needs to be really honest with itself, understand there is a huge issue there, and initiatives are great. It's brilliant to talk, and raising awareness, education is so important. I'm a big believer in that, but now is definitely the time to take action. It's about coming together, all areas of the game, and really putting some things down and have some real hard discussions about how we move things on, because at the moment there just seems a real blockage at a certain point and a ceiling.
Well, that's just a small snippet of the wider-ranging chat I had with Joby. The full conversation is available on the EFL YouTube channel, and the audio is available now wherever you get your podcasts from. Okie dokie, I'm now delighted to welcome to the official EFL podcast to chat to myself and Gary Weaver, a man that swapped South Yorkshire for South Wales. It's Swansea City boss Michael Duff. Michael, how are you?
Yeah, morning. Good, mate. Thank you.
Good. A few months into it now. Just get us up to speed. How have you found it? We spoke last time when you were at Barnsley doing tremendous work there. How's it been at Swansea so far?
It's been tough. There's been a lot of change at the football club. From the top to the bottom, we've had a new chairman, new sporting director, new manager, new coaching staff. I think included in the women's team, I think there's been 30 players signed. I think there's 14 members of staff have left. A lot of them have gone with Russ to Southampton. So it's it's been a lot of change. Obviously, trying to rebuild recruitment departments and sports science departments, and whilst trying to win a game of football at the same time and implement a new style of football. So been busy, but it's, as always in this job, it's people know it takes time, and it's just hopefully you get the time to implement what you need to.
Given what you said there, when we hear this word transition being used at football clubs and in football teams, that is quite literally what's happened there from top to bottom, isn't it? So just describe a manager's lot when that is particularly the case, because does it feel like there's a lot of people getting used to each other in these early knockings of the season?
Well, I think in any high performance world, whether it's business or football, it's communication. and trust and relationship building, and relationship takes time. You say it all the time. You don't ask your missus to marry on your first date.
No, I mean, there's a whole tangent of a podcast there.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
so the players are getting used to me. I'm getting used to the players, and generally, you come in and there's an infrastructure of the academy and all that. But like I said, the academy managers left, the under-18s managers left, the old managers left. So yeah, trying to bring in what you want, and it's a big club, it's a good club. The facilities are brilliant, the staff are brilliant. It's a different club in terms of all the staff are supporters of the football club because of the geography of where we are. So there's extra pressure within that as well. But yeah, we're confident that if we can get what we want in when we want, even at the start of the season, we played the first 5 games of the season without a recognised left back. There wasn't one in the building, not even 8 or 23s or an under 18s. So that's difficult when you're trying to Josh Key, to be fair to him, he was playing in League One last year. He's been absolutely brilliant for us. But he had to start the season going up a level, playing out of position, which is tough. I think we had a bit of a reset after the last international break, and then we played Cardiff, and we brought a few players in, but they were unfit. But since that Cardiff game, we've been much improved. We've lost the last couple, but we could have counted ourselves against Leicester. Could have gone either way.
And you mentioned how strong Leicester City have been, haven't you, in dispatches with regards to how good Burnley were for you. Leicester are a notch above them, aren't they?
Well, I just think they've got more seasoned Premier League players than Burnley had. Burnley were a bit of an unknown. A lot of the players were unknown. But you look at the people that Leicester have got, in terms of, like you say, your Vardy's taking off Jamie Vardy and bringing on Iheanacho in the Championship, which seems a little bit unfair at times. You got bringing Connor Cody on. I don't know how many full England caps he's got on, but they're bringing him on to see the game out. But we were excellent. Could have easily got something out of the game. Tuesday night we get done in a typical Championship game. Could have been 0-0. I'd have a good goal disallowed and get done with a worldie. But we've been much improved since then. But again, that's from building relationships, understanding what the players want, players understanding what we want from them. And it's a work in progress, there's no doubt.
Michael, the last time we spoke was in the tunnel before that South Wales derby. I know we're talking in the build-up how big a game it is, and usually if you lose that, it can ruin a season, but you've gone the other way. I mean, how have you managed to kind of reignite the season on the back of that?
Well, there was some soul-searching from everyone, really, because it's... Obviously, everyone knows about the South Wales derby, but I think it's one that, even for me, I've played in big derbies and Blackburn, Burnley and things, but until you're here, you know how important it is. I don't think that's probably always the case in big derbies. But we had a meeting afterwards, and we showed the players a few things. They said a few things, and it's like, oh, okay. And like I said, it's building trust. So like, I'm asking them to do things, and they're like, oh, what, you mean it? I was like, yeah, I mean it. But it's the same. It's the same from me talking to them, and it wasn't until it was sort of like a real sort of not watershed moment, but it was like, right, well, we can either carry on doing like this, where you're doing your bit, I'm doing my bit, and we're just not winning games, or we can invest in each other. I need the players need me. How are we gonna make a solution and make a change? Because we changed formation, but I think there's a little bit more to it than just changing the shape. But there's been a lot of hard work. We've lost the last couple. We've got a tough run coming again, but it doesn't change it. You want to improve. You want to work. You want to get to a point where in 12 months' time you go, right, that looks like your team. And at the minute, we're in that big transition at the minute, and it's sometimes it takes longer than others.
And I suppose in that as well, you mentioned Josh Key, the fact that he's on not a mounting injury list, but such as a manager's lot. Ben Cabango, another one where you're looking at getting what would be your first choice, first 11 out, has been at times tough this season. But once again, transition, just the very kind of daily nuts and bolts of being a manager. I remember we were chatting last season about what it was to watch a game and how everything kind of went on the game, and the game was the bit that you least enjoyed because it was when all the control that you've got is relinquished, and then you go, come on lads, let's do what we've spoken about. And given what you've just said there, which I thought was remarkably frank and honest about speaking after the Cardiff game and then putting people and each other right, because I think sometimes, and this is without going on a tangent of an old ex-pro, very frank conversations were always had, potentially in our era of playing football. Is it still the same now, where you can professionally go at each other and say, well, this is what I've asked, you've not done this, you need to do this, because it's vocational, isn't it? It's each other's careers and jobs that you're putting on the line when you go out onto that football pitch.
I think it's more educational than it used to be. You know, in the old days, it was like, you've got to be better. And sometimes they go, well, what do you mean?
That
Just
was
be
it.
better. And so, yeah, we are. But when I say we had honest conversations, I think you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to get taken out of your comfort zone. So, you know, I'm asking players certain things. I'm showing them clips of, well, that's the work we did in the training ground, and that's what happened on the Saturday. Well, what's the point of doing that work on the training ground if that's going to happen on the Saturday? But that's not just me putting that on them either. You know, I'm asking them about me and the staff. How can we help? Are we doing something that you're not sure about? Are we doing things that we can help you? And that's not me being passive and subservient to the players. It's getting a balance of the two, because we have to understand each other. It's pointless me sitting in my office where I am now with the staff going, well, he should have done that, he should have done that, because you don't know what you don't know. So they don't understand, or they don't quite get what you're asking from them. It's our job to make sure they do, so there's no excuses. And the same from our point of view. You know, training needs to be covered. The things that we're asking to do need to be covered in training. So, and that gets layered up and layered up and layered up as the trust and the understanding gets greater.
And Michael, you obviously took over from Russell Martin. He's got this very extreme way of playing, very precise way of playing. I know you don't play exactly the same way. There's obviously elements that I suppose you take from it. But how difficult was it trying to get the players to do things differently? And how important was it bringing your own players in, if you like?
I think, because whenever I say anything, people assume that I'm criticising Russ. It's not that I'm criticising Russ at all. I just see him slightly different. But players are creatures of habit. So when you go in a canteen at any football club, you can nearly guarantee that all the players will be sat in the same spots. When they go in the analysis room, they'll all sit in the same seats. When they sit in the boat, but that's the same when the way that they play. So they've had after 2 years with Russ, they had a real set way of playing, and you're asking them to do slightly different things. And when the pressure comes on of a game, sometimes players fall back into a habit, and again, that's relationship building, that's trust that I keep talking about, because you know. I think they averaged 70% of the ball last year. I like my team. I want to have my team to play good football, but I don't want it to be one-dimensional. I don't want to, but I don't want to play out from the back at every opportunity. And that's just the way I see the game. It might be right, it might be wrong. It's proved to be okay so far. It's been up and down here at the minute, but hopefully, like I said, if you can build the relationship and get the players to understand why you want to do it slightly differently, and the one thing they have been, the players have been great. And some of the it's a difficult start. We didn't win for the first 7 games, and the 7th game is the South Wales derby. But they're a good group. Now I know I hate it because you always ask a player and it's like, oh yeah, we've got a great set of lads. Well, there's normally a couple of eggs in there, if that's the polite word.
You're speaking to a couple now, Mike.
Yeah, but someone's that have got a different agenda or want to undermine and everything, but they haven't been that. They've stuck together, which is why that meeting was probably so good, because it was right. How are we going to make this better, rather than, well, he's miles off it, he's useless. How's he in the team? Because footballers look for excuses as a general rule, but because of the geography, they all live in the town.
Yeah,
because it's a long way from everywhere. So everyone in this area is a Swansea fan, so they can't get away from it. So it's like, well, I can blame everyone else, or we can all look in the mirror. How can we all get better, and how can we all improve? And that it sort of gets accentuated because of where we are, and they can't get away from it. You live in Manchester, or you play in a team in Birmingham or London, or you can duck in and out.
Yeah,
but you can't hear it. It's submerged you everywhere.
I've read comments of yours in the past where you relate to 7 promotions as a player and a manager, and you know what that dressing room smells like and tastes like and looks like. Are the ingredients there at Swansea? Can you get a faint whiff of potential with regards to who you've got and where you're going?
I think there's definitely, like I said, the togetherness within the squad is great. I think we need to add we wanted to add a little bit of pace and physicality in the summer. We've been unlucky with injuries, like you said, and not little injuries either. Joe Allen's out till Christmas, Nathan Wood out till Christmas, Josh Ginelli out for the season. Got a young lad called Azim Abdullah. He did really, really well pre-season, who offers completely different to what we've got in pace and power and physicality. Tore his hamstring the day before what would have been his league debut. But that's what we want to add into it. We think we've got some good footballers here. We want to, and that's with the recruitment. We need to add in a little bit of that. But I think the togetherness is definitely something that to build from. Absolutely.
Michael, just wanted to ask you, how big an influence has Sean Dyche been on you? I know you're still in touch with, obviously, Sean. He's a bit of a mentor. And also the Gaffer's Day, which I know is more about the mentality rather than the physicality. What's that about? And also, do you think Prutz could handle that?
To be fair, Prutz could run, to be fair. Good job he could. Because he
couldn't do anything. Damned with the faintest of praise.
Yeah, record that.
Yeah, but I still speak to Dyche a lot. We've just brought a new head of recruitment in who worked under Dyche and with me at Burnley for 10 years. But a lot of what I lean on Dyche for is not, we play a completely different formation. I have done for the last 5 or 6 years. It's more, I think he's the best in terms of man manager and getting the best out of people and how that looks, and finding a way. It's not always, it can't always be my way or the highway. It's showing a little bit of humility, coming to the players sometimes, asking them what they want, and that's where he's absolutely fantastic at. And he's at a club now where it's something we have conversations on. We're comparing clubs and things like that, and there's similar problems. Just it's the clubs are there, right? It's just bigger problems and bigger egos, bigger fan base, all these sorts of things. But no, I do lean on him a lot, just because of he's like a good sounding board. He's not emotionally connected. He doesn't watch us play games. He doesn't know what formation we're playing. But they're not the things I'm asking about. I think I understand that part of the game. But in terms of like how you deal with people and egos and problems, that he's dealing with bigger, and he's had bigger, better problems that I've had. So I can bounce things off him. And in terms of whenever we win a game, he's the first one that texts. It shows you everything about him, and that's where the Gaffer's Day. People assume it's a physical day. They think, oh, it's Sean Dyche, who's a dinosaur. He's got a gravelly voice. He's got a skinhead. But the thing that makes me laugh is he got criticised for years playing 4-4-2. But he kept Burnley in the Premier League for a long time, and I think the only reason they went down was through a lack of investment. And he got criticised for playing 4-4-2, but you watch Man City play now, and when they press in a 4-2-4, 4-4-2. Yeah. And it's sometimes its perception is greater than what's actually what's going on. So yeah, it's the actual football side of it, and formations and rotations and 8s and 6s and 10s and false 9. Don't speak to him about that. It's more man management than we speak to him about.
He certainly does strike you as the type of fella that would. I mean, I've had the occasional text of him when he thinks I've been talking rubbish on TV, so I always try and keep it very, very
daily.
And if I had to keep track of people that did that, Weaver, I'd be inundated with text, wouldn't I? Michael, it's been a pleasure to chat to you, mate. I know, given we've spoken about the geography of where Swansea is on the South Welsh coast, which means every away game's an absolute trek. You've got to get yourself ready to get yourselves up to Blackburn. But it's been great to see how the season's turned round, how it's progressed, how you've progressed as a man and as a manager. And of course, we'll keep a very, very keen eye on you and Swansea and moving forward. Say hello to Alan Sheehan for me, a former teammate of mine and a very good sounding board.
Yeah. No, he's it.
He's a good boy, as is Gary Weaver. Gary, thanks for joining us this week, my friend. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Michael. Good luck, mate.
Cheers, Gary.
And Duffer, all the very, very best, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers, boys.
So that's us done and dusted for another week on the official EFL podcast. A big thank you to Michael Duff, Gary Weaver and Cardiff's Romaine Sawyers. As always, if you've enjoyed it, and I'm sure you have, then please do give us a 5-star rating, press the follow button, and share on your socials. If you'd like to get in touch, our email address is podcast@efl.com. That's podcast@efl.com. My name's David Prutton. I'll see you same time next week for another marvellous episode of the official EFL Podcast.